Welcome back to the Air Crown Crypto channel, where we are once again in it for the tech as we look at Bitcoin on all time frames today and do a little bit of a short-term, medium-term time frame analysis in anticipation for tomorrow's very long-term time frame analysis. Anyways, with that in mind, I do want to wish you a happy and healthy start to this nice little Saturday morning over here from a actually bright Helsinki, Finland. It's been a little bit of a later morning for myself. I actually slept in for the first time in a very long time. I slept all the way until 8 a.m. That is insane for me because typically I do have a 5 a.m. Wake up time. But I suppose this week was rather tiring with all of the work actually happening off of the, of course, Bitcoin breakdown and by extension the greater cryptocurrency breakdown. So with that in mind, a bit of a weekend of rest, and the next week opens up for some major opportunities. So with that in mind, I want to once again point you towards the Crown Trading application. It can be found in the link in the description below. It is also 100% free for right now. And there is the big indication of the day, the big bad thing to be aware of, the one thing to rule them all, and that is, of course, global open interest. We've been following this for the past 2.5 months now. Basically, the narrative has been is that as long as this thing's above 13 billion, risk remains to the downside, and that's exactly what we're seeing alongside trend and, of course, several indicators as well. So I want to follow up on this. Of course, offer up some hopium at the end of the tunnel as well, but just as we've been saying for the past 2.5 months now, basically since 63,500 was broken to the downside, until Bitcoin, ooh, nice. Hold on, I actually might have a little bit of a scalp on over here. Until Bitcoin actually does confirm, of course, above our critical regions, there is no talks at all whatsoever of any major reversals, and that is just pure hopium. So with that said, let's get into it right now. Global open interest, you can see it's come down all the way to 10 billion with a B. Now, if we go even into an hourly data feed, you will see that it is, it's actually exactly consistent with the daily as well. Sometimes you will see a differential as obviously the hourly data feed gets updated more, more frequently rather than a daily. But ultimately, I do want to be looking at this from a more longitudinal view in this case, in the sense that, hey, look, anytime that we have seen it above 13 billion with a B, there's been at minimum 20% corrections, and at maximum thus far that we've seen since mining this data, about 50% corrections. This one that we saw back on over from April to, of course, summer lows on that move from $65,000 highs to $30,000 lows. And we did hit even greater extremes more recently on the current $69,000 all-time high. And I would be looking for this to go for the full reset. So we are already below what we saw on the December 4th wipe down, and I imagine that we're probably going to be heading for somewhere similar to what we saw over September and, of course, the summer, as this is clearly a major market reset at this point with the breakage of the critical $41,000 region, the same area that we've been speaking about for a long time now. There was some hopium for that region in prior, in the prior weeks, but ultimately, that is now dissipated, and it is time to be looking at the greater scale and how everything's kind of changed based upon this. Fear and greed index, this market is not fearful enough, baby. 19 read, that is obviously extremely fearful, but can come down much lower than that. And I do expect that on a massive liquidation and extinction event like we're seeing right here, we probably see that come somewhere around single digits. Anyway, speaking of extinction events, we can go over here to the liquidations chart, and we'll actually get to the funding chart a little bit later perhaps, but what I want to focus on right here is this, of course, as I blow it up. This is actually rather sombering when you look at it from this perspective. We really haven't seen that many liquidations consistent with the history of this asset, even compared to the more recent washout that we saw on December 4th. For example, that one had about, let me just zero in on it. Let's go to the 4th of, come on, let me just do it. No, I just need to move it ever so slightly there, but if I could just, no, this is so frustrating actually. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we saw about 45.64 million, I believe it is, liquidated long and on that day, compared to right now we are just seeing, well, not just, but of course about 31.33 million liquidated long. Now that is in no way, shape, or form even remotely close to what we saw over the summer on the last or what currently is the macrocycle low, which if I could get this one, come on, man, let me just do it. Yeah, there we go. We were looking at just under 200 million liquidated long in that case. And you're probably wondering, or perhaps if you're looking across the other metrics on the web, like why is this a little bit lower in comparison to those? That's because our data providers only do verified fees. So it's naturally going to be lower, as you can't, it's really, really difficult to verify a lot of this stuff. And there's a lot of bad information going on, but it is consistent as it tracks the same exchanges and only adds new ones as they do get verified. So in this case right here, for what it's worth, I don't think that we've seen it just yet. And I do suspect that the global open interest is not just going to be going for what would have been a bit of a bullish, I wouldn't say a bullish reset, but a reset into a more hopium area. But we're likely to see a full-on reset in this nature as well. Of course, I always want to bring up this as well. The leverage ratio, we've seen a nice downtick, with the biggest downtick in one day that we've seen basically since early December as well. But again, this is in no way, shape, or form anywhere near levels that you would expect to be a bit of a reset in this case. Now, naturally, again, we do expect it to go up over time. That is the trend of a maturing asset, of course. But in this case right here, this is these are extremes, and they're still at extremes even with yesterday's event. So I do suspect that we probably have not seen the totality of this just yet, but that doesn't mean that we can't see dumps in between. We did say yesterday a move down to $35,000 was likely, and that's actually where we're at right now. So I do want to follow up on that in the short and medium term timeframes. I'm curious if I want to follow up on anything over here. Funny rates ever so slightly negative, not negative enough to make me really consider that this is an easy call in this case for a short-term bounce, but ultimately, I want to see that consistently negative, preferably, at extremes, to be quite honest with you, when we are looking at an extreme move to call any sort of major low. In this case, I'll only be looking at short-term, medium-term lows. And then, of course, we'll go over the verification for price action that would actually propel those ones onwards and forward. So let's start it off over here. Oh, Jesus Christ. In my face, man. Anyways, on the monthly, we are sitting on the yellow 21 exponential average, which is, typically a bouncy region, as is the 20 simple, basically the same thing, just between a simple and an exponential. But ultimately, these are long-term bouncy regions on very, very higher term timeframes right here, this being a monthly, obviously. Of course, we also did get the quarterly backfill. I believe we spoke about yesterday as well, which we'll just go over to right here. Yes, indeed, we did. We came all the way down to, of course, the July open, or the end of Q2, that was essentially. And, that has been a very consistent theme throughout the history of Bitcoin. Anytime that there has been a quarterly reversal, there has always been a backfill on that open. Doesn't need to necessarily happen on the subsequent dildo following that one, similar to what you saw back on over here from the January 2019 reversal off of the $3,100 macro lows. This one obviously got filled pretty much to the T, actually, in the old flu dump times over here. So I do think that does deserve a bit of respect. And of course, probably going to have at least a bit of a short-term bounce here. Here's the problem though now with Bitcoin. Just as we were saying before, all bounces are obviously lower highs into all timeframes now, not just up to a 5-day and weekly, but now including a 5-day and weekly, specifically on CME, as that one's already closed for price action yesterday. And I'd expect spot price action to kind of, hang somewhere around what you saw, CME close, which, to be fair, CME actually did close at 38,000, just above 38,000 right here. Let me just double check. Yeah, okay, so it did play out the move down to 36,150, bounced up to close the day. Okay, gotcha. So I do suspect that we're probably looking at a bounce coming into early this coming week. If I had to put a date on it, more or less Monday, Tuesday areas, typically when you do see those sorts of, behaviors after coming off of a very, very nasty Friday in this case. But you can see that CME's played perfectly down to the 21. Very likely to bounce here. Again, bounce, not the same thing as reversal. So what would constitute a reversal for this asset? Well, let's go over here, or we can even just use the same chart as yesterday. It's actually quite literally the same thing. In fact, well, where's our last lower high? Our last lower high is $44,000 on a daily. So any bounce up to there is just, well, yet again, another lower high before preparation for continuation. However, if Bitcoin does clear above this region, which we've been slowly marching down over time, remember before, or like way back on over here, it was 63,500, I think it was. Then it got moved down to about 59,000. Then it got moved down to 52,000. Then it got moved down to 47,000. Then it got moved down to 44,000. So again, I just want to show that over time, while this has been marched down, that's like a consolation prize for the Bulaws that, obviously a weaker asset's going to require a little bit less in this case. But ultimately, as long as Bitcoin's below there, again, any bounce is just another lower high. Problem also is now, because we do have a weekly downtrend, we do not have a weekly downtrend confirmed on anything just yet. We do have a lower low. So that does mean, just like we saw back on over in, it was April, May, yes, where, Bitcoin did put in that first lower low, have to be on lower high watch now. So where can those lower highs typically come in around? Well, I would say high probability anywhere between the 0.5 and the 618. And that is, again, another sombering detail right here. Actually, the very interesting thing is the 0.5 is right at $44,000. So it would be consistent with the daily lower high. the 618, which is where you typically do look at on your bull trap sort of behaviors, is 48,500 or so. So at some point, Bitcoin will very likely put in a rally, as we've been saying. I would not be looking for this rally to be even confirmed as like a possibility though, until again, the first major area gets taken out. In this case, that's going to be $40,000 even at the 382 region. And then it's, well, for myself in particular, it is lower high watch. And that would be your weekly reversal. And well, all weekly trends in Bitcoin's history have been the macro direction for the eternity of history for what it's worth. So with that in mind, what else do I want to get off right here? First things first, we need to have the actual bounce. So let's go to the short-term timeframes now. Let's see if there's anything resembling a potential bouncy bounce coming up right here. I want to make sure that I do not take any risk whilst on this stream in particular, as there is actually a few opportunities right now, although I definitely am not the biggest fan of trading over the weekend. We are starting to see some extremes here on 4-hour BBWP. I imagine all time frames below that are certainly already there. Yeah, bi-hourly certainly there. Hourly certainly there as well. Curious how high this goes up to. 12-hour is getting up there, 95.5 percentile, and daily is nowhere near. Well, it's not necessarily nowhere near, but of course this is currently at about 77 percentile. I want to see this get up to 90 percentile minimum before I start to call, potential major bounce. So that likely aligns with, at minimum, Bitcoin hanging down around this current territory. Remember the signals that we spoke about coming into 2 or 3 days ago. The big one was right here. Well, it's kind of in conjunction with another one, but basically one of the big ones was, of course, the advanced stochastic, which did show a turn down below that 41,500-ish region. I think it was upon the 2 days ago closure, which we obviously got. And now what would be required in order to force this baby back up to show upside momentum, which is not the same thing as a reversal. That just offers up a bit of hopium towards the reversal areas where we can see corrections to and maybe rejections from, would be 38,320 in this case. So that this one's still kind of coming hard down with volatility increasing and ADX actually rising here as well, which is a continuation signal actually. Anyways, on top of that, we also did identify on CME specifically 2 days ago, hidden bearish divergence. There was another drive confirmed yesterday, which we did identify as well, within which is pointing further south here, of course, here too. And then on top of that, we did see that the daily jewel as of the 19th, I think it was, the 19th, we did see a full-on downside signal within the bearish control zone or around the bearish control zone. So I do think that Bitcoin, whilst it is kind of in a macro bouncy region, understand that a monthly bouncy region does not mean it's going to play out on a 5-minute time frame. Does not mean that's going to play out on a 4-hour time frame, nor a daily. How many days go into a monthly? 30 or 31, somewhere around there, depending upon what month that you're in, which I don't even understand that shit because months are difficult for me. There's like that whole fucking saying where you do like the counting of the fingers and it tells you how many days. I don't even know, man. I never learned that as a kid. But anyways, my point is, or what was my point with this, is that yes, when you're looking at a monthly bouncy region, we don't expect that to play out immediately. So there could very easily be a drive down a little bit further south to open up this coming week, and then I'd be looking for bounces, presumably somewhere around, let's say, Tuesday is typically the day, especially with the FOMC meeting coming up on, I believe, Wednesday. With the way that markets are looking, they're probably going to try to help things out as usual. Anyways, I am going to make sure that everything is all good over there. Okay, what was the other thing that I wanted to mention? Yeah, daily BBWP expansion. That is rather nasty, you might say. You might say indeed. Oh, yes. Okay. So where could we find a stray wick to the downside before this next bounce plays out? Well, as we said yesterday, there are two major areas of interest: the $35,000 level because of, quarterly backfills, and also just, this kind of last, or I wouldn't say last, but this major higher low right here on the daily at $38,000. At 35,000 or so. But here's the thing: we do have this massive gapola down here, all the way at between about $33,000 and $35,000 that has been stared us in the face for a very long time. So I do want to be on record as saying that, as we could very easily get something like a wick like this, maybe early this coming week, bounces back up. That would probably be the big indication of a big bounce. But until we start to see even short-term time frame momentum also just turn to the upside, it's just not wise to even be looking for a short-term time frame bounce. I mean, 4-hour is still, this is really, really aggressive right here. It's probably going to bounce soon, but 36,500, that's more than $1,000 than we're at right now. Not great. Hourly, I mean, even the hourly is still nosediving below 36. So a lot of things I imagine on the short-term time frame is going to be kind of postured around there. By hourly is going to be showing 35,650, and 3-hour is going to be showing. It's going to be showing what? It's going to be showing about $36,000 as well. So I do like that as a short-term pivot right here. Actually, do want to make sure that I can take advantage of this current thingy right here. That would be nice. Okay, beautiful. And let's see, where did I want to leave this one off? Yes. So now let's go through the very, very low term time frames, and then we'll just wrap this video up. Basically on the hourly right here. Where we essentially looking for, on a bit of a short term, a bit of a very, very short term reversal. Well, again, $36,000 is going to be relevant for the very, very short term time frames. Of course, that's going to be coming in from, let me just get out my nice little horizontal ray. That's going to be right around here. Of course, if you do see an hourly closure above there, I would be looking for short term time frames to play back around somewhere around these medium term time frame highs. That's going to be your mid 36s or so, but even the short-term time, even the medium-term timeframes are held down below about $37,000. Thing is, though, and a bit of hopium on this side, obviously, is going to be, look, if you do start to clear above this region, you're going to see all this momentum also start to turn up, even on the, on the short and medium-term timeframes, not on the higher-term timeframes. And well, I'd be looking for, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to kind of fill out this area right here. And of course, now $40,000 is going to become a major area. Again, the 382 retracement on the macro scale right here, which I have right there. That's going to be a big one. Bitcoin is heavily bearish and corrective below $40,000 now. No talks of even, a daily reversal at this point below there. I mean, that does not come into the conversation until $44,000 point blank period. All right, cool. So I think that's going to do it for right now. I'm going to be signing off with that said. Stay safe in these markets, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.